Hello everyone, it's Oliver Harper here, back with a new commentary, and this week my guest is comedian and musician Nick Helm. How are you doing, Nick?
Oh, great. How are you?
I'm alright during this lockdown. You've been keeping yourself busy?
Yeah, because we're not in the same room. You should probably say that for
yes, for the first time.
Posterity's sake.
Yes, because because the lockdown is still in action, we've had to sort of do this over Zoom.
We're on Zoom. Otherwise, when we talk and it's a bit stilted, it'll sound like we're not functional human beings. It's like, yeah, okay. But I'm in London and you're in
Norwich, the home of Alan Partridge.
You absolutely nailed that. Well done.
Okay, now if you wish to sync this commentary with your own copy of Judge Dredd, put the timestamp to 0 and press play now.
The classic, what do you call that? Sphinx? That's not a Sphinx. Is that a Sphinx? What's that?
Yes,
Sphinx.
It's Hollywood Pictures, isn't it? Who are owned by Disney, who they distributed this in the States. I think it was kind of picked up by other.
Hollywood Pictures Disney.
Yeah. Along with.
Why have they got that logo? That logo's.
They're hiding behind it. You see, it's there.
It's not a good logo. Do you know what I mean? They've got the best animators in the world, and then.
Well, Synergy was owned by Andrew Vanya, who was obviously part of Carolco. So once he and Mario Kazard kind of separated,
not to be mistaken for Andrew Vagina.
But once they'd sort of separated, Andrew Vanya had done a bunch of his own movies, and he'd done like Tombstone, and he produced Die Hard 3, which that sort of messed up some of the distribution of Die Hard 3. Remember those DVD box sets? You couldn't get 1, 2, and 3 in a set. I think Die Hard 3 was kind of sold separately, but then they figured out the sort of licensing deal. But yeah, so he set out to do, a Judge Dredd movie, casting Stallone, and hiring Danny Cannon, who just come off The Young Americans, a sort of British sort of director.
Have you seen The Young Americans?
Sorry?
Have you seen The Young Americans?
No, I haven't. No, is it good?
No, I've never seen it. I had a CD called "This Is Cult Fiction," and it had the theme music for Young American. We've missed half the film now, Oliver. So the beginning is obviously sort of like they're showing those comic book, pages from the comic book, and it's meant to sort of like build you up, thinking, yes, here he is, Judge Dredd. And obviously they throw the comic book out the window and go, we're going to do something entirely different. Who's doing the voiceover there? Is that James Earl Jones?
James Earl Jones, yeah. Do you always worry, though, when you sort of see a movie that has like an opening prologue that is kind of just cutting through a lot of the fat just to get to where they want to be?
I worry that I'm not going to be able to read it in time. I mean, genuinely, I'm terrified. This is a great shot. What an opening shot. I like I always liked the heat sort of like wave that they have coming out the back of the spaceship. I'm coming at this film from someone that saw this in the cinema in 1995 and left the cinema. I hadn't read a review for it, and I left the cinema thinking, that is a 5-star movie. That is the best film I have ever seen. It blew my mind. And when I read Empire and it had 2 stars or 3 stars, I was just like, what the fuck is going on here? I must have entered a parallel universe because people aren't loving this film. I thought this film was incredible. Look at the costumes. And obviously, Rob Schneider, everyone's favourite hero. The hot chick, finally.
This is production designed by Nigel Phelps, who had sort of went on to do Alien Resurrection and a number of the Transformers sequels, and he's now working on the new Thor movie. But this is, for the time, for 1995, probably 94 when they're sort of shooting this. But the effects have stood up really well after, 25 years.
It looks incredible. The practical stuff looks good. And I mean, obviously that's a straight, and then they've got like a bit of practical stuff, and then everything else is CGI.
This is a shot at Shepperton, wasn't it? Very sort of. It was like where they used the Fortress of Solitude in Superman.
Lens flare. That was a lens flare before J.J. Abrams got around. Look, this is great. This is great. I mean, so one of the big criticisms was that it steals off a lot of stuff. And you know, obviously it's like heavily inspired by Blade Runner and stuff like that. But you go, yeah, but with updated special effects. You know, if they were to make a fun Blade Runner that wasn't just sort of like a bit of a plod, then it would look like this. Do you know what I mean? This is a great opening sequence because it introduces you to the whole of the world. And also, you can say that the movie steals off Blade Runner, but in actual fact, it's based on the comic book, which arguably also stole off Blade Runner. So it's an adaptation of the comic book rather than kind of...
Judge Dredd came out a couple of years before the Blade Runner movie, but I think the world of Judge Dredd has kind of had sort of changed over time. And I think on a visual sort of level, in terms of with the medium of film, Blade Runner kind of set the standard. And with any movie that deals with the future, Blade Runner is sort of the one everyone sort of follows, because once you sort of add neon lighting and rain and sort of retrofitting the kind of the past with kind of new structures, it ends up looking like Blade Runner. And interestingly, Danny Cannon, the director, was a huge fan of the character and had done this kind of art piece during the 80s. I think he submitted it to 2000 AD, but his own Judge Dredd movie, which was very much inspired by Blade Runner, this sort of art piece. You can find it online. It's actually he's a good artist. But yes, I mean, I get the sort of criticisms with that world, but there is elements of it that do feel, not entirely ripped from Blade Runner, such as these corridors and stuff. It doesn't.
This feels like its own thing. I think that there are enough things that steal from Blade Runner. I don't feel like this is also, that's a really good joke right at the beginning where he thinks that he's going to go to these luxury apartments and he ends up in the street. They drop him off in the middle of a street riot. That's a good joke. This film so far is not a bad film. This is the guy that was going to be Michael Biehn in Aliens.
That's right. Yeah. What was the reason he got jettisoned from that movie? Was it just because he was smoking too much pot? I think maybe at the time.
I think that it was substance abuse, and also he just because he just didn't get on with James Cameron, and I can completely understand that. And if you're James Cameron, what do? You get the guy that the Terminator. Do you know what I mean? And I was thinking about this last night. Michael Biehn is great, but he's a great support. We're talking about Aliens, but Michael Biehn is a great supporting actor for not elevating, but kind of like supporting strong female leads. Do you know what I mean?
As you were saying earlier, this is sort of the opening is really good. I think most sort of Dredd fans sort of mostly agree that the first 10 minutes of the movie is really strong, because this feels like Judge Dredd. Yeah,
because he's got his helmet on and everything like that. But going back to what I was talking about in Aliens, Ollie, there are two, there's so much stuff going on. Oh, right, yeah, we'll go back to Judge Dredd. You're right. Keep us on track. That's fine. But, just saying, I watched King Kong Lives yesterday, starring Linda Hamilton, and I thought, she's good, isn't she?
Oh, God.
But what she really needs is a Michael Biehn.
Was that the late 80s one, or was that sort of the 70s
one? 86. It was the sequel to the 70s.
It's a terrible film, isn't it?
It's better than the 70s one. I mean, as a sequel, the special effects are pretty good as well. They're better than the 70s one. Anyway, here he is. Here's the guy with his shin pads and his knee pads and his cock pad and his shoulder pads, and there he is. I think he's great in this. Everyone was like, he's perfect for it. I do think, though, because half of his top lip is paralysed, you've probably got a better lower half of your face actor than Sylvester Stallone. Famously, he's got a bit of a wonky mouth, right? Everyone's like, he's perfect. And everyone's like, yeah, but Clint Eastwood would have been perfect. And you go, yeah, Clint Eastwood would have been.
Yeah, true. Because Clint is because Dredd is supposed to be old, isn't he? Dredd is supposed to be really old. Because he gets older in the comics. So he's supposed to be whatever, I don't know, 60 or 70 years old. But I think he has in the comics at some point he's made himself younger or whatever. But this is supposed to be the block war in the comics. There's a famous sort of storyline about the block war, and Jürgen Prochnow character sort of references it later on in the movie when he gets.
But I've always so I'm coming at this from a point of view that knows nothing about the comics. That was never really into the comics. Huge Sylvester Stallone fan. I would have. I was probably slightly too young for Cliffhanger, but then Demolition Man came out the same year, and I went to see Demolition Man, and then Assassins, and then I was just all on board. So The Specialist, Judge Dredd, and this felt like kind of, because Rob Schneider's in it as well. It feels like not like a sequel, but like a parallel kind of like follow up to Demolition Man.
Well, when they announced that Stallone was going to be Dredd, it was around the same time Demolition Man was about to come out, and then because I wasn't reading film magazines at the time, I wasn't really aware of what was going on, sort of on the movie sort of schedule lineup. Demolition Man came out, and I was like, "What is this? A Judge Dredd film? What's going on?" So he played two, cops in a short space of time. And when this came out, I had a couple of friends who were big into the comics, and they seemed to enjoy it, but they were young lads and just excited by the action and the look of the movie. It was kind of silly things where he has like the double whammy with his gun.
Yeah, that's funny though. I just think that these are all people are just like, oh, it's not a good film, but like there's deliberate jokes in here. The fact that he's playing it so straight and serious is the joke, and even Rob Schneider is there like commentating on the fact that you're so serious. He takes the piss out of him. He does sort of like impressions of him to his face. The whole point is that Judge Dredd is an emotionless, kind of straight-faced arsehole who's judge, jury, and executioner, and they take the piss out of it within the movie.
Yeah. They was kind of self-aware, weren't they, that they was taking the piss out of Stallone and his kind of, what he was doing with the character as it sort of become its own in-joke.
Yeah, but that was the double whammy bit, and then he did Rapid Fire, and did he say Rapid Fire or Rapid Fire?
I think it was Rapid Fire, wasn't it?
I think he says Rabbit Fire. And I thought that made sense to me. Like rabbits are small and they bounce around, so you want like lots of shots all in a row. Like you're shooting rabbits.
The shot when he comes out the door though and starts shooting at them, that was like an iconic shot in a trailer where you see him, reveal himself. I was like, wow, that's there's Danny Cannon, especially also with the help of Adrian Biddle, the cameraman who shot like Aliens and The Mummy and Event Horizon. Really create an interesting sort of visual look to the movie.
Let's cut the bullshit here. Danny Cannon got thrown under the bus.
Oh, he did,
Danny Cannon, what did he do after this? He did I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, right? Danny Cannon got relegated to doing like trash, right?
Well, he does TV, doesn't he? He does Pennywise and Gotham, so he's a really
but like he did Judge Dredd. He did Judge Dredd. I mean, the thing about Stallone's never had a James Cameron. Do you know what I mean? He's kind of like he's a control freak. You just think, how good would Cobra have been, or Tango and Cash have been, or Cliffhanger's got Rennie Harlin, and he's got like I feel like you can feel Rennie Harlin's presence in Cliffhanger, but he I mean, that's saying something about Stallone's career, where you kind of like go, he didn't have a James Cameron, but he did have that one Rennie Harlin film. Do you know what I mean? Rennie Harlin and James Cameron aren't in the same league. I just find it, I find it's just weird that he never had like a visionary director to sort of to take, except for himself, obviously. But so he's a control freak, and so when you look at this film, a lot of the problems with this film are based on, and this was the height of his. This was sort of like his second comeback, or you know what I mean. And this is the height of him at his Planet Hollywood ego phase, where he couldn't let anyone else.
Because Danny Cannon was like 26 years old when he got the job.
Absolutely.
Very young guy. So, and I'd probably say it's a similar situation that Dave Fincher had with Alien 3, where you've got a young lad as a director and all these old people who are, production designers crew members and Stallone, who's twice his age.
Who's directed, and he's won an Oscar, and he's directed a bunch of.
Is he going to take orders from a young lad? Probably not.
They made so much money. Also, he must have kind of like, because Rocky V kind of ended his career for a bit, and also in between the Rockies. I mean, I guess Cobra did really well, but then he was making stuff like Over the Top. So in between, he had the Rocky films to sort of, and the Rambos to sort of flag bottom. Rambo 3 didn't do great. Early 90s, he was doing stuff like Oscar and Stop and My Mum Will Shoot. And so it's kind of like, well, Stallone's over, right? He was like, and then he did Cliffhanger and Demolition Man, and then he had like this resurgence. So by the time he gets to Judge Dredd, it's kind of like he is clinging on to that, and he's not going to let a 26-year-old fuck it up for him. And so this whole thing is basically it's a tug of war between the studio, Sylvester Stallone, and then Danny Cannon is like going, well, I'll just make it look good. Like, this is a good shot. The shot is moving. There's energy to it. He's directed. The direction is really good. The way that the film ends up, I mean, they obviously run out of budget later, but the way that the film ends up is not really Danny Cannon's fault. And you would think that he would be making this film just thinking, if I just cling on and don't make this a total embarrassment, then I'm going to have a career after this.
There's an interesting article. He was interviewed for Entertainment Weekly when the film came out, and he was contracted to do a sequel. So was Stallone, as part of the sort of deal at the time. But they asked him if he was going to make one, and he just said, "I'd rather stick pins in my eyes."
That's what Danny Cannon said.
Yeah, Danny Cannon said that. The interesting nugget of information I learned when I was, when we were shooting the action documentary I made, and Stephen D'Souza, who wrote the movie, he kind of came in to rewrite it.
Did he write this?
He came in to sort of do one of the drafts. It wasn't the original story conception, wasn't by him. It was done by William Wisher, I believe, who'd worked with Cameron on T2. Stephen said his job was to write the movie or rewrite it for a PG-13. But what he wasn't aware of, that Danny Cannon was shooting an R-rated 18 movie at Shepperton. So when they got the dailies, he watched it with Andrew Vanya, and it was gory, guts everywhere, blood everywhere. And he goes, you can't, I've written a PG-13 and he's shooting an 18 rated movie. This will not clear the censors. And then it was submitted to the Americans board classification, and they rated it an X. Yeah, so it had to be submitted 3 or 4 times for it to be. I think you can only submit it a couple of times before you.
So this got cut to shreds.
Got cut to shreds. So, like for example, later on when you see Jürgen Prochnow get pulled apart by the ABC.
Yeah, robots. I mean that's a telltale bit.
Yeah. So that they built a whole ginormous prosthetic Jürgen Prochnow to get pulled apart, and it all happens within camera. So there's even bits later on where you see like the clones when they wake up but do nothing. So there's stuff missing from that battle.
Oh yeah. That's what I mean about kind of like they ran out of budget.
It's been hacked. It's been hacked to bits.
Yeah, but you can tell. You can absolutely tell. Well, that's Danny Cannon. Then what being? By the way, everything in that scene is great. That scene that we've just had.
Well, it sort of reveals. Yeah.
You go. Yeah, you take his helmet off, but it's not just Stallone. It's Stallone with blue contact lenses. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like his haircut is cool. The way that the back of his head is all shaved. Like they haven't just like given you Stallone. Do you know what I mean? It's just like they've given you Stallone plus.
I think as it's once he removes the helmet, I don't think it's no longer really a Dredd film. It thus becomes a action adventure film where a guy who is accused of a crime he didn't commit and he has to clear his name.
It's Tango and Cash.
Yeah, but it's set in the future. Yeah, and it's frustrating to a degree.
I completely agree with you, but I'm just saying I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with that. Right? I look at the production value. It looks incredible. Armand Asante chooses. Who's this guy? What else has he been?
I had never seen that chap before. He's not part of the council, isn't he? He's come in to sort of like, or part of like he's come to. Wasn't he supposed to give him his rights or sort of grill him on something? Isn't he? he's given him an item, that was it, that turns into a really cool prop, actually, where he reveals the badge and who he has to kill, and he turns that prop into a gun, that sort of casing into a gun, and shoots him. Really clever sort of prop.
But also he shoots him through the throat.
Yeah, so he can't talk, you know. So there is... This was supposed to have toys and merchandise, like, you know, Burger King, McDonald's, etc., and they lost all of it because of the rating it got at the end, because it's still semi-violent in places. So
yeah, but I would argue that isn't Judge Dredd's fault. That's Batman Returns' fault.
Yes, I think that as well. I think they're all eager to jump on the bandwagon, but you cannot tailor Judge Dredd to children.
It's not a kids book. But also, it's just really cool. I'm sorry. All of the production value is great. I love the fact it's set in Aspen. Armand Asante is really good casting, I think, because he doesn't really look like Stallone, but if you squint a bit, you can kind of like imagine that they're brothers.
I love the way later on where he has his trousers up really high, like Simon Cowell, doesn't he?
Yeah, but that's how they wear them in the future. Who's this guy?
That's the journalist, isn't it?
That's a really good prop. Yeah. Shoots him through the throat. I mean, yeah, you can see. But you know what? If he hadn't have filmed it as an X-rated bloodfest, then none of this would have existed. So do you know what I mean? So they trimmed it down and they put in some fucking... I mean, I remember all of this stuff. I haven't watched this film in years, but I do remember all this stuff. I just loved it. It was just kind of like, you know, because there's the bit later on when they fly through the city on hoverbikes, and you kind of like go, yeah, they've basically nicked the sequence from Return of the Jedi, right? When they're going, you know, it's the same thing. But that's a good cut there, going from stuff getting shot to Judge Dredd training. I mean, it's well put together. You've got fucking Balthazar Getty in this scene.
Yes, I was watching it last night and I saw him. I thought, well, I recognise him from somewhere. But yeah, he's been in loads
Young
of stuff.
Guns 2.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was just like, whoa, Balthazar Getty's in this. Young Guns 2 was ages ago. But Young Guns 2 was obviously only 4 years ago at this point.
I do like that Stallone has to wear a lot of boots with high heels, doesn't he, to sort of keep make him taller than everyone else around him.
But he's so skinny as well, so he looks taller. He looks amazing in this film. Brilliant. Yeah, but the sequence later with the bikes when they're flying, that bike there that doesn't work, and then all of a sudden they kick it and then it starts working.
There's moments where they could have had a compromise with Stallone, because obviously you pay for an actor like 20 million probably at the time that his face is going to be covered up. So he's going to go, well, I'm not going to have my face covered up. So they should compromise and say some scenes where he has to wear a helmet, like here, for example, he should wear it because he shouldn't be revealed to. No,
they made a decision. I think they thought people would be grown up. People would be like, oh yeah, obviously he's not going to wear the helmet for the whole film. People will be grown up. We'll introduce him with the helmet, and then he'll take the helmet off. And then what they should have done probably is save the helmet reveal for when he gets revoked. You know, so when they like kick him out into the cursed earth, that's when he should take his helmet off, and then there's the reveal, and then he's absolutely this is like, oh look, it's Sylvester Stallone. Do you know what I mean? And up till then.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a compromise, isn't it? You alternate the time he has it on and off. Because he puts it on again briefly later on. I'm always shouting at the screen saying, keep that fucking helmet on. But he doesn't.
This is a good scene. This is real emotional.
This has got wonderful Morticia-ized lighting coming up here.
When he goes, it was. Look, he's taking his helmet off there, but he wasn't wearing it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, this would have been a good reveal. Do you know what I mean?
He wore it in the shower, didn't he?
Diane Lane.
Streets of Fire, married Christopher Lambert for a number of years.
Really? Christophe Lambert?
Yeah, Christophe Lambert. Yeah.
What a lucky couple. Here he is, yeah, Morticia Adams lighting. He was my brother. I judged him. I love him. I just love him so much. Oh wow, Yeah, but she goes on to be Superman's mum.
She does, and she played George Reeves' girlfriend, didn't he, in Hollywoodland?
Oh yeah, bloody hell! His girlfriend
She
and
was
his
in
mum.
Streets of Fire. I saw kind of recently by Walter Hill. That was her kind of big break, but the film was a flop.
I've got an interesting story about Streets of Fire, and by that I mean it's not that interesting. But it's I got it on DVD. My ex-girlfriend had a Batman and Robin TV/DVD player. So it was this TV that was shaped sort of like Batman style. So it was kind of like, yeah, it took sort of like, you know, the costume that they have when they are all silver at the end of Batman and Robin. It took like that aesthetic and they made it into a TV that had a DVD player in it. And I was watching Streets of Fire, and then we split up, and I moved out, and I got the DVD case, but I didn't get the DVD.
Oh,
so
no.
I've only ever watched the first 20 minutes of Streets of Fire, and then I rebought it on Blu-ray. It doesn't fucking work in my machine, so I still haven't watched it. Like this is 10 years later, and I've still only managed to watch 20 minutes.
It's a good film. It's a good film. It's a bit.
Yeah, it's got Rick Moranis in it.
Rick Moranis in it. He's not funny in it though. He plays it straight, which is really weird.
Yeah, but he wasn't Rick Moranis then, was he? Now, who's this old guy with the grey hair? He's been in stuff, hasn't he? He's been in loads of stuff.
I can't remember that gentleman.
He's in loads of stuff.
Loads of stuff.
Is he a Russ Meyer? No, he's not the Russ Meyer guy, but he's in loads of stuff. So you say the Blade Runner stuff. It's not just the buildings, it's the neon. There he is! Fucking hit me with your rhythm stick, mate. Fucking yes. So weird that he's in this movie, but fucking hell.
It's weird here because Armando Santi, sorry. He does throw in a British accent in a minute, despite being from New York. He just sort of says, he goes, "Oh, don't touch that," and he goes, "Well, why is that?" You know, it's very sort of, he has a bit of British twang to his accent.
I think Armando Santi is great in that. That's an ABC warrior from a different comic.
That's right.
Thread, isn't it?
Yeah.
That ABC warrior looks, I mean, it's fucking incredible. It's such a good prop. Is it a prop or is it a character or is it a puppet? What is it?
It's a proper.
Let's decide now, and then
it's an animatronic. It's animatronic.
It's an animatronic, right? We've decided now. Now we can put that to bed finally, once and for all. It's an animatronic, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, it shows you the sort of extravagant budget they had. They built this ginormous.
Not an extravagant budget. It's an exact budget. They built a robot. It's perfect. The robot is perfect. It becomes like his sidekick for a bit.
I love it, because when he shoots all those people, he's like, "Good boy." He's just like, and he sort of smiles and sort of appreciates the comedy.
This bit, look at the action of the top of his head just sliding off. It's so good, and I remember the rust, everything about it. It's just such a well-made animatronic. Amazing. Look at it, it's so good.
You've probably got like 12 people off camera operating that, just pulling levers, going.
I don't give a fuck how many people it took to make it work. They made it work, mate. All right. So I'm just finally going to go back to this Return of the Jedi thing. Yeah, but they updated the special effects to a point where you go, it's worth remaking and stealing that bit from Return of the Jedi. Where it's so good. It's such a good update. You know, they've taken all of these, looks and sequences from other better movies. Really, let's be fair. And but what they have done is they've updated all the special effects and they've made it like this. I mean, that still looks good. It looks better than the.
This is all miniatures. They built a giant city out of a miniature and they shot it. It's a bit like very similar. They did a lot of things on Fifth Element, very similar effects.
Yeah, but Fifth Element looks animated.
There's a lot of digital manipulation, wasn't there? They overlaid it with. I try to think, who that reporter is. I can't remember his bloody name.
There's people at home screaming into their laptops, right? That's what I'm saying.
It might be.
We should know. We should be better than this, Oliver.
It's Mitchell Ryan. He was out of Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. Grosse Point
Blank. Of course.
He's in charge of the cults. He's the bad guy in Lethal Weapon, for fuck's sake.
Lethal Weapon 1? What, with the moustache?
The general.
Has he got a moustache? He got a moustache in that.
Oh, he might have, yeah.
He looks fucking different without a fucking moustache. That's all I'm saying. I don't even believe that it is him. I think you've made that up. This bit. Oh, get him out the car. Come on, this yuppie. He deserves his car being blown up. Aye. She's backing away. She's thinking, no way. She was only in it for the drugs and the sex. And she's just going to absolutely abandon him. He looks like a mid-90s record producer.
He does,
looks like an absolute. I was like, oh yeah, you can go and fuck yourself. Oh no, it's Judge Dredd. Oh no, I put my foot in my mouth here. He's shitting himself. Look at this prick. You deserve a real comeuppance, mate. Maybe it'll happen. I've given it away already. He gets his car blown up, but fucking hell! No, not the car. Like, this is a bit. It's like whoa, and then sorry, this is just all noises now. But like fucking no! Yes. Like they must have filmed this Thursday morning. And then they would have broken for lunch, and he'd have gone, I nailed that.
The writer threw his own name, didn't he? Because he's called D'Souza, the guy they bust. But you can tell, also it's shot in England by the sort of crappy weather throughout the entire film. Like everything that's set during the day on the set is just like cast over weather, cloudy, rainy. It's like it fits the world.
Approaching this quite cynically, I just always assumed that was what the weather was like in Mega City 1.
Mm.
So come on,
it's pretty like
there he is.
Heavy pollution and stuff like that. Okay, Nick. Do you think?
When did he get arrested? Did he just get arrested?
He's got arrested
just
then. Yeah.
Sorry, I was so excited about him blowing up the car.
Have you seen the Carl Urban movie from 2012?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the Raid 3.
So did you prefer that film over this one?
No, but I think that it's an alternative. That's the thing, right? I mean, people really hate on this film. It's brilliant. Max von Sydow is brilliant. Like this film's great, you know. But you look at something like Batman, and you can, Tim Burton can exist alongside the animated series. And if you were a little kid growing up, I heard somebody say the other day that when they were like 7, they went to see Batman and Robin, and they loved it. It was because it's a toy advert, right? Yeah. So they kind of like, I think there's sort of like a Batman for everyone, and they can all exist side by side with each other next to Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan wasn't necessarily. I still don't think my Batman has been put on screen yet, and I would say that except for the animated series, they've not really ever nailed. They've not ever really nailed that tone. And he's never a detective, so maybe. But I'm not sure about this Robert Pattinson one that's coming up. I suppose I would argue that I think every Batman movie, there's always, like, say you've got to get 5 elements right of Batman. They always get to like 4, but never get the final element to make the perfect sort of balance of everything. Because you get a great Bruce Wayne, but the Batman suit's a bit meh, and the voiceover's a bit rubbish. But it sort of varies, with each movie. And Heath Ledger was great as the Joker, but it wasn't like a comic.
But does Dredd, sort of operate in a way in which you can do different adaptations of him, thus sort of...
Maybe not, but this was the first adaptation. They were kind of like, this is back in the day when, they were still experimenting with adapting stuff, like Super Mario Brothers and Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat maybe were the only kind of like video game adaptations. Comic books were just like, Batman's good, and we've done Superman, but everything else was like straight to DVD, straight to video.
We had the Phantom, didn't we? And the Mask and
the Shadow. But like the Mask wasn't a. I mean, if I was a big Mask comic book reader, I would have been disappointed with that movie because it was totally.
It becomes a Jim Carrey vehicle, doesn't it?
It's a Mambo movie. They've got Mambo music all the way through it, and you're just like going, "Hang on a minute." He's like meant to be mutilating people, so it's kind of like
it's a bit like it seems to take its elements from like Roger Rabbit and things like that, doesn't it? The Mask does.
I really enjoyed it.
Mm.
But with this film, I just feel like you know, it's not. And this is coming from a point of view that I used to read Batman comics, and the thing about the comics is that Batman is has had so many writers and so many artists over the years that, and it's changed so much. And you've also got like the TV series, so that when they had the dark take, you could still go back and do a lighter version of Batman, you know. And they've done that with the different animated series that they've had. So there is room in the world for loads of different iterations of Batman, right? What there isn't is, because Judge Dredd comes from 2000 AD, it's a very specific thing that was made. And when this film comes along and does sort of like a different take on it, it's much easier to say, well, that's nothing like that. You go, yeah, but Batman and Robin is not a good adaptation of The Dark Knight Returns. Do you know what I mean? So I think that I don't know. I think that this is, maybe there he is, Balthazar Getty. I think that maybe if you, I mean, this bit. I just think the acting is. I think the acting is good.
I just love it when he loses temper.
What? You want some coleslaw?
This film is kind of like the battle of the vowels, isn't it? You know, throughout.
Well, when Armando Sensi comes in. Yeah. I mean, Max van Sydow. Is it Jürgen or Jürgen? Jürgen Prochnow.
It's Jürgen Prochnow, yeah.
I mean, these two guys are heavyweights.
They are, yeah.
And they're wearing spandex with gold epaulets.
I think ultimately that the film is kind of getting pulled from different directions with its tone, because we have, once you sort of pair up Rob Schneider with Stallone, you have this kind of sort of buddy cop mentality, isn't it? It was having these kind of cheap gags kind of thrown in for comedic effect. The political satire doesn't really come into play with this movie. I don't think there is kind of little elements of it, but it doesn't really come to surface. So RoboCop did it so well, because RoboCop borrowed so much from the Dredd comics with with its approach and tone, and a lot of the lines RoboCop has comes from Dredd, like you have 10 seconds to comply and things like that. So it was kind of unfair for Dredd to sort of for it to come out and then, you know, they couldn't really do what they wanted to do, because it would thus end up being copying RoboCop, which copied Dredd. So they had to leave it so long for them to actually pursue a Dredd movie.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone is in any doubt that there is a better Judge Dredd movie to be made. And if Paul Verhoeven had made it, and it had the same sort of intelligence behind it as RoboCop is, I would say, one of the handful of perfect movies that has ever been made. I think it's incredible from beginning to end. This is not a perfect film by any means. No one is arguing that Judge Dredd starring Sylvester Stallone is a 5-star stone cold classic, right? But it's of its time. I enjoyed it when I was a kid growing up, and I've got a lot of love for it, and I don't understand the hate for it, because I think it's incredibly memorable. The costumes, the production design, the sets, just the special effects still hold up. I think Stallone turned up for work every day. He put in a good performance, and the cast is incredible. I mean, look at all of these people. You've got Jürgen Prochnow, Max von Sydow, Balthazar Getty, Diane Lane, Sylvester Stallone, you know, all in one scene together. He had to put his. I mean, do you know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, you can take your helmet off, but you're gonna have to put in these fucking contact lenses every time you do it. You know, that must have been kind of one of the things to like persuade him not to do
it. Well, I think he got in a big argument with Danny Cannon, because Dredd has green boots in the comics, and Stallone was adamant about having these green boots, and he was like, "No, you can't. This looks silly." So obviously, I think Stallone played a part in choosing Versace to design the outfit,
That sounds like such a Stallone move.
It does, doesn't it?
I'm gonna get, because he did, right. Yeah, Versace designed the costumes. That's like but that's like The Fifth Element as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Where they got
that
John
was,
Paul Gaultier.
Yeah, Gaultier.
John Paul.
Yeah. So a lot of these, I see, a lot of these amazing kind of, fashion designers were getting pulled into these kind of big action movies and all science
It's a
fiction
90s thing.
films. Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
But then what a project for them. Do you know what I mean? If you were a fashion designer, imagine what the world is like in the year 2000.
Yeah. I think the only thing Versace did design was the Dredd suit. I don't think he played a part in anything else, but everything else would have to be sort of to follow his kind of design, wouldn't it?
But I love this sort of like adaptation of Obi-Wan Kenobi wearing like a leather duster.
I remember the teaser trailer for Dredd, and it had all these sequences where you see the guys line up their guns, and you've got Dredd coming through the door, and these kind of iconic sort of shots, and with the music, because Jerry Goldsmith was going to do the score, but due to scheduling, he couldn't do it. But he provided the theme for Dredd, which was in the teaser trailer, which is that that sort of like sort of military march, but which I thought was really effective in creating a theme for Dredd. And Alan Silvestri came on. Apparently, David Arnold was going to do it, who did Stargate and Independence Day, but they went with Silvestri, who provides actually a very good score to the movie. I think maybe a bit too heroic for Dredd. And it's sort of what it comes from. No,
I can hum this. I can hum the theme tune 20 years later. Do you know what I mean? Or 30. What did we say it was?
It was 25 years ago.
5 years later. Oh God. Yeah, but I can. Do you know what I mean? I think that. I mean, these are all good shots.
It's great stuff. It creates great sort of the outside mega city whatever. You got the Curse's Earth.
Maybe you need to. Do you know? I watched the Child's Play remake.
I saw that recently. I thought that wasn't. I didn't mind it. I thought it was quite well made.
I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. But do you know what I mean? It's just kind of like, it's not enough like Child's Play to bother calling it Child's Play. But if you'd have made it and called it something else, you'd have said that's a Child's Play ripoff. Do you know what I mean? It's not one thing or the other. And that's like this. It's kind of like, you might as well just call this something else and just say that if this wasn't called Judge Dredd, I think people would love it a lot more. Because you just call it like a sci-fi.
Yeah, you're pretty right there, Nick. If it was called something generic like Future Cop or something like that, then it would be, it would be fine.
But Barrister Fear, something like that. About a futuristic coffee maker. But the thing is, if they'd have called it something else, you'd have just gone, that's a Judge Dredd ripoff. So it's enough like Judge Dredd. It's enough like Judge Dredd.
Either way you criticise it and call it, say, oh, well, why is Stallone doing this? He's just done Demolition Man. Why is he doing another futuristic kind of cop movie? So I think it's always down to these things where, Hollywood at the time are taking a comic book property, which I think is kind of valuable, and do a live action adaptation, but play very loose with it because they've got to appeal to as many markets as possible. So you have all these changes come into play, and it often alienates the fans in its attempts to please everyone. And it did all right financially, but because it cost so much money, it didn't really create much of a profit margin.
How much did it cost? It
cost about 70 million. Danny Cannon brought it on budget and on schedule. It didn't go over schedule apparently. But yeah, so this is 70 million. That's a sort of big summer blockbuster kind of budget.
70 million. I mean, but let's put that into context.
Nowadays, that's quite small.
Jack and Jill, starring Adam Sandler, cost 80 million.
Oh God, that's appalling.
That was
a waste of money.
Well, no, they spent it on that wig. Don't you remember? They spent it on that wig. Fucking hell. Yeah. This is. Yeah. I if you'd have called it something else, people would have said that's a Judge Dredd ripoff. You call it Judge Dredd, people don't like it.
It should be called like Tango and Cash 2020 or something like that.
But then again, you talk about like Demolition Man, and I feel like Demolition Man. I love Demolition Man. I loved them. I think Demolition Man was the movie that made me. I was a Schwarzenegger fan my entire life, you know, and Demolition Man was the one that made me actually feel like Stallone was like an equal.
Sure.
You know, but I do feel like Demolition Man is cut to shreds. And I think the tone is all over the place. Sometimes it's a comedy, and sometimes it's kind of like a straight. That, especially the ending. And it's also sort of like when at the beginning of the film, Wesley Snipes says, "You know, I swear I'd lose my head if it wasn't attached." And then at the end, he kicks his head off.
Yeah.
You kind of like want him to, yeah, but you kind of want him to say, "Remember when you said you were going to lose your head if it wasn't attached?" What? Remember when you said you were going to lose your head when it was attached? I think I get what you mean. We're going to kick your fucking head off. And you kind of want like a little bit of a callback. Do you know what I mean? Rather than they set up the play. I think it would have been a bit more satisfying.
The ending of Judge Dredd kind of mirrors Demolition Man in a way, because you're having battling it out in this kind of factory-like setting, which is kind of, you know, Wesley Snipes is trying to, you know, bring back all these criminals, unfreeze them, but then you got Rico kind of cloning all these people from him. So they're kind of similar parallels there. But this whole sequence here, I think for me, the movie for me, I always felt kind of sags at this point in time, where we are introduced to the Angel family, but it's kind of very cool sort of costumes and prosthetic design to the guy with the sort of missing his arm.
You're in cloud cuckoo land, my friend. The movie has just got going. Rob Schneider's been reintroduced. He's done an impression of Stallone to Stallone. He holds up his hands to cut off the bottom. That's all of that stuff is gold, you know. And it will only be a few short years later it'll make Juice Bigelow male gigolo, and then you think finally he's got his own vehicle. What one of my bugbears is people that talk about Roy Scheider.
Oh, yeah, get confused.
No, they just call him. They call him Roy Schneider. Like Stephanie Beacham was on the Oscars the year he died, and she was calling him Roy Schneider. And you go like, Stephanie Beachman. How do you like it? Do you know what I mean? It's just like you got Roy Scheider, Rod Steiger, and Rob Schneider. I think those guys should have made a movie together. Scheider, Snyder, and Steiger.
This summer.
Curtis Steigers.
We've got a gentleman from Trainspotting there.
That's him, Ewan Bremner.
Yeah. He's really
later on to steal the show on as the wacky policeman from 80 Days Around the World. The Jackie Chan vehicle. What a terrible film. I just remember when they announced that, and you go, Steve Coogan is in a Jackie Chan movie, and you go, oh my God, he's going to be the new Owen Wilson. And then you watch it and you go, oh no, what have they done? Oh no, 80 minutes of hell. Rob Schneider's in that now.
And Arnold Schwarzenegger as well, isn't he? His last cameo
in a wig,
he became governor, wasn't it?
Mm.
The action sequences, well, they throw in soon, where they sort of try to escape from the Angel family. I don't just a bit kind of uninspiring. I think the best piece of the action throughout the movie is which you highlighted earlier, was sort of the chase on the bikes. I thought that still looks really good today. Over 25.
Well, it's green screen or it's blue screen or whatever.
It's kind of green screen mixed with miniatures and some CGI manipulation. But it plays out like if they made like a Judge Dredd amusement ride, that would be it, wouldn't it? You just
it's great. It's great. It's great. Come on, and it's in. Do you know what I mean? They've updated the speeder bike sequence in Return of the Jedi. Never looked good, right? I always just thought I mean, you can see like black outlines around them. I just never thought that it looked convincing on any level. But I admired the spirit that it was intended, you know.
Right.
Whereas this, it's kind of like they've taken that sequence and they've updated it, and they've gone, this is what we can do with new special effects. This is a good costume outfit, and the fact that Rob Schneider is absolutely shitting himself the whole time. Going, oh God! I think it's funny, you know, like he's terrified. It's like.
As you said earlier, this should have been the moment, isn't it, when once he gets arrested and he's put on that transport sent to prison. That should have been the part where they reveal it's Stallone.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was, but no one's going to. I used to have that as a press-on tattoo.
I was wanting to stick on. This hurts your fucking skin when he comes off. Like
it's a barcode that you scan. And there was a Judge Dredd movie comic book that came out at the same time, and I bought that. I loved this film. Like, I loved it. I thought it was a masterpiece. You know, obviously I don't feel the same. It's a 3-star movie, right? But
I don't think it's one of Stallone's worst at all. I think it's. I also don't think it's one of the worst comic book movies. I think it sort of sits in the middle. It sits there with like Batman Forever and possibly like The Phantom and things like that, where it doesn't quite deliver on what it's supposed to do.
It's better than Batman Forever. Much better than Batman Forever, which I watched again recently and I hated.
I watched it as well recently. I sort of tune out halfway through, but I kind of like elements of it.
They cut out all of basically Val Kilmer's dramatic scenes, apparently.
Yeah,
so there was a better film.
Yeah.
But they made it into a Jim Carrey vehicle in the edit, basically. But
Tommy Jones despised him, didn't he? Apparently.
Yeah.
I can't stand your buffoonery.
I will not sanction your buffoonery. But I mean, look at that. That's a terrifying piece of makeup, but it's also, you can see like the flesh that's like grown in around. It's so
that headbutt
good.
Would have killed you, wouldn't it? That we would have not survived that headbutt.
Killed you, not just Dredd. Not Stallone. This film, I would say this film is better than Cobra. I would say this film is better than Tango and Cash. But Stallone's a weird one. You know, he throws films under the bus, and he's just like...
Oh yeah, he throws like Rocky V under the bus, giving it 1 star. I think I watched it again like over a year ago. I thought this film is not that bad at all. There's some good stuff in it.
How many Rocky films are there now? There's 8, including the Creeds.
Yeah,
and none of them are below 3 stars.
No,
and
I think so.
He got Oscar nominated for like the 7th one. As a franchise, it's an incredible franchise. You know, you can they're all good. Some of them are masterpieces. I would say 1, 2, and 6. Rocky Balboa is probably my favorite. But but to say that as part 6 of a franchise is sort of insane. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, and part 7, they're still getting Oscar nominated. No one got an Oscar for Police Academy 7. Do you know what I mean? No one got an Oscar for Mission to Moscow. So it's just kind of like, I think that's sort of incredible. And also, he always goes on about Stop or My Mum Will Shoot and how terrible that film is. That film is terrible. There's no doubt. There's no doubt about that. It is terrible. He is better in Stop or My Mum Will Shoot than he is in Driven.
No, that's not a good film. Yeah, well, teaming up again with Rennie Harlin. You know.
Do you know what though? I loved Driven. I saw it at the cinema. I couldn't work it out. I watched it and I was like, I don't really understand what the story is or what the point is or what the plot is. And then you leave. I remember I watched it on a rainy day in Southampton when I was at uni. Didn't even know there was a Stallone movie out, and there was like Driven. All right, went to see it. Me and my girlfriend and my mates at the time. My girlfriend at the time. They're still my mates. And we went to see Driven. It was raining, and at the end we were all like drenched, and we had a cold, wet KFC, and tried to work out what the 2 hours we've just watched were.
I remember the hype for Godzilla, the '98 movie, and I saw it when it was pissing it down with rain as well. And you watch a movie which is like just a whole film set in the rain. You just walk out even more miserable, you know. The teasers were amazing, but the film was.
I know. They made some really good trailers out of that shit.
Yeah. They don't do that anymore. They don't do really fucking good teasers. Dredd had a good teaser. You know, Godzilla had a great teaser. I'm trying to think other ones that sort of that period had. I mean, T2 had its own teaser made.
Oh yeah, but I mean, fucking. So I just love this film. I just think it looks so good.
As I mentioned earlier about the violence, there's elements of the violence are still in when he gets impaled by that blade from behind.
But I think there's just enough violence, and also at the time, I didn't feel like it was really. I mean, how much would they cut out of that?
So if you didn't know, like as you were saying earlier, if you haven't read the comics and you didn't know that Dredd never removed his helmet, then that wouldn't be an issue. So you put aside that problem, but then you think, well, what else has the movie got to offer apart from sort of, pulling sort of sci-fi imagery into a film? And I mean, for Stallone, really, it's not a huge departure from what he's already done before. So I suppose, he's just playing a character who's kind of emotionless.
He's got contact lenses. Come on.
Yeah, he's got blue eyes. He's so dreamy now. But then he's just done Demolition Man. So what else is he doing that's kind of different from what he's done before?
It's different. It's a different character. John Spartan has got a sense of humour. He's sort of like it's weird though, isn't it? He's the Demolition Man. So at the beginning of the film, he's just a badass, and then later on in the film, he's like, "Send me to the fridge. Put me back in the fridge." The Schwarzenegger library. What? Hey, Luke Skywalker, use the Force. He's sort of like he's like a wise guy when he wakes up in the future. It's like it's a totally different character. Do you know what I mean? He's the straight man in this movie. And then you've got like a revolving cast around him.
He's definitely a straight man, but I think there is elements where he's trying to be funny with his kind of deadpan kind of humour. He goes, do those guys survive? And he goes, actually, they were roasted. There's kind of that sort of comedic delivery he does.
Yeah, but he's not great at that, is he?
No, it's nobody. Well, that's the thing. He didn't quite have the sort of charisma of Arnold to sort of throw in to sort of balance the sort of comedy. I don't think
it's when they start putting one-liners in Rambo 2, and when he comes out, when he gets caught up on a parachute, and he goes, "I'm just hanging around." You go, "Come on, mate, fucking hell." And that's the thing. I was thinking about this last night. You look at something like Commando, right?
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, not a great actor, but you're right. His charisma just sells everything. And you go, something like Commando, not the best made film. I love it. I would say, it's 5-star family fun, right? I think that Commando is one of the best. I would say it's like I would put that above Terminator as one of my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger films. I love Commando, right?
Wow.
But it's not like a really slick, well-made film. It feels sort of like it's kind of like got the same production team as it's like a Cannon movie, right? It feels like you're watching Delta Force a bit, right?
Yeah.
And you can see all of the scenes, you can see like the stunts and the special effects, and it's kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger's bad acting, but also great performance.
Yeah.
Kind of like muddies the gaps where you don't really know whether it's a deliberate joke, bad filmmaking, or just a bit shit, or whether it's good. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like it sort of blurs the lines where you don't know whether it's good or bad intentionally. And there's stuff in that film that's definitely intentionally good, and there's stuff in that film that's accidentally bad. But you're never like 100% sure which is which. And so that makes the whole film better. Because you can kind of like allow the mistakes as going, well, they meant to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's an example, isn't it? Where 2 years later he did Predator, which was kind of like just like a polished, high quality presentation of what Commando could have been. With all the slick production values.
Yeah, but Commando is a comic book movie. Do you know what I mean? Commando is like a G.I. Joe movie. Whereas Predator, as we've discussed before,
Oh, yeah.
Predator is one of the best movies in 4 different genres. Do you know what I mean? It's just sort of like it does so many things well. That's his best film by far. You can forget about Terminator 2. Predator is his best film.
With this sequence here, it's quite amusing because Rob Schneider's got nothing to do. So they cut to Rob Schneider just sort of sitting there, just kind of like just rubbing his legs, looking around, really bored.
And also well done to bring us back to Judge Dredd. I mean, I do like the film, but fuck me, it's boring, isn't it?
You've just done everything you said about the movie then.
I do love it, but fuck me. Yeah, you're right. These bits do drag. You're right. There he is. He's all sad that a man he's never met has died.
Is this the whole middle act here? This kind of doesn't quite sort of gel together, and it's pacing issues. I think it's probably a result of the sort of the constant rewrites of the script, but they forgot actually the sort of the meat of it and had to sort of throw it in at this sort of section here. There's a lot of exposition dumps.
Yeah, sure. But what I would also argue, right, or what I would say in defense of this film, is that it is a cliched plot, right? It's a cop who gets wrongly accused of a crime. He gets framed for a crime he didn't commit. He gets kicked off the force, and then he has to go in and get the bad guys and prove his innocence. Right, it's a cowboy movie. It's a Dirty Harry movie. It's kind of like, it's cliched as fuck, right? But in order to get to that plot, they do a load of really weird stuff that they put an ABC warrior in it, and they've got there's all these visuals that they've attached to a judge. Well, they've taken a cliche plot and they've attached all this Judge Dredd iconography to it, and I think that's really interesting. It's weird when they made Dredd with Carl Urban. It's basically The Raid.
Well, those movies sort of came out roughly at the same time, so I think
no, The Raid came out, and then Judge Dredd came out, and then Dredd came out, and then everyone said, "Oh, it's like The Raid," and you go, "Yeah, it's like The Raid," because they were trying to make a low budget thing. So they said, "We'll keep the sets minimal."
Well, what made it work though, wasn't it? Because what made it work is that people got to see Dredd being Dredd for the entire film.
Yeah, but it's still not his story. Do you know what I mean? It's still kind of like they've taken a cliche plot here.
It was just a random adventure, wasn't it, for Dredd? It was just like a day in the life of Dredd.
But the film is it's not identical, but the film is basically, it's a cool idea for a film, but it's The Raid. Do you know what I mean? And you go like, fine, where's the Judge Dredd story that everyone wants to tell? Stop. What they've done twice is they've hijacked stories and attached Judge Dredd to it.
Because for this film, they've like taken away everything what makes Dredd within 15 minutes, and he doesn't become Dredd till literally the very end when she puts his mask back on, his helmet back on, and he goes off to do what he does.
As a character, but then also the studios would have been pushing it, and you just like go, fine, I'll take the helmet off. But like everything else is Judge Dredd.
Wait, I wouldn't say my argument wouldn't be like, oh, just because taking the helmet off is no longer Dredd. But I think as a character, he doesn't do any more judging at all. He only judges Rico at the end by saying court's adjourned, and he pulls him off the Statue of Liberty, which has got bizarrely has the cloning facility built into it, which is weird. But
that's another deleted scene, the bit when he pulls off Rico at the top of the Statue of Liberty. That's a wanking joke. So this sequence here is basically out of Lethal Weapon 3, right? when they kill off all the cops. Is that Lethal Weapon 3 or Lethal Weapon 2? Lethal Weapon 3.
Oh, I think that'd be 3, wouldn't it?
She explodes on the diving board.
That's number 2. Number 2.
Right, Lethal Weapon 2. Right, there you go.
Hello, Cursed Earth Pizza.
Every line's a zinger.
It is, isn't it?
Oh, I mean, he does have. Maybe he has a bit. Look how young he looks there.
Oh, damn, yeah.
Fucking hell. Stallone. So basically, rumor has it that Stallone loved him so much in Demolition Man that he said, "This guy has got to be in my Judge Dredd movie."
Well, there was this random bit of sort of trivia that the role was originally intended for Joe Pesci.
Fuck me,
But
fucking hell.
would you believe that Joe Pesci is like a computer hacker? I mean, maybe I don't think Rob Schneider is really a computer hacker, but I suppose
I don't believe that Joe Pesci owns a computer.
you wouldn't trust him to set your VCR, would you? Really?
I don't believe that he's got a mobile phone. Do you know what I mean?
It's like constantly
He's got a landline.
You couldn't cast Joe Pesci either because he'd just be a swearing machine. So you just have him like Home Alone, with just like just constantly mumbling all the way through it.
Joe Pesci, yeah. I mean, I don't. It's weird. I mean, it's a very weird thing. I wouldn't choose Rob Schneider over Joe Pesci in, I would say, 99.9% of all of the roles that they've made. But in this case, I think Rob Schneider is a better
Joe
choice.
Pesci is Juice Bigelow. You know, God, that'd be a horrific movie to see.
Nobody wants to see that. Mind you, nobody. Well, come on. Prefer. This is a bit of a controversial one, but I do prefer Juice Bigelow, male Gigolo, to European Gigolo.
Oh, sequel.
Oh yeah, I hate
They
the
did.
sequel. They got an R rating for the sequel, and
That's right. Yeah.
Because they were like, "Yes, we've got an R rating. We can do all the jokes that we wanted to in the first one." You go, "Oh, don't do that." It's horrible.
The making of the movie has a great little moment where Rob Schneider jumps down those steps and he just completely pratfalls and hits himself right in the face. And Stallone just grabs him, still continues with the scene. And Rob Schneider's like, cut. And Stallone goes, "You okay?" Just taps him on the back. But you see him slap his face really hard on the floor. Oh, God. I'll be like, I'm done. You know?
Is that so? That's a behind the scenes bit.
Yeah.
Oh God!
It's an action movie. Stallone's, used to the pain.
Yeah,
Get up and move on.
See, I always think that they're arguing, bickering here. The timing is wrong. They leave it too long before they run in.
Yeah,
it's all about like the maximum amount of time. I think there's the explosion.
If you have a director whose last movie was kind of gritty, I presume gritty kind of thriller, when you're dealing with a movie that's kind of jumping between action, a bit of comedy, and a bit of horror. It's not a skill set for everyone.
But that's in the edit. They waited a little bit too long.
Yeah.
But also, you don't believe there's fire coming out. It takes ages for them. You'd be incinerated by now. You don't believe that there's fire coming. Where's the fire? What, the fire is coming from the entrance where they've just entered? Like, what the fuck is going on, guys? Are they running away from the fucking explosion? This is bullshit. This film is bullshit. What, you didn't see that you were going to drop down the thing? Like, that was a massive fucking surprise. Now, where are you now? On the other side of, none of this makes sense. Why is there fire bursting out the walls of Mega City 1? What's that?
It's like Galaxy Quest when Sigourney Weaver says, "Why is there this massive chompers?" And it's like, it doesn't need to be there.
Absolutely, it's like a computer game where they've gone.
It's like the walls of Mega City 1 are just like expelling gas, just constantly farting out all these flames.
Yeah.
Now they've got to release the anus files or the Janus files. That was
We want something a bit like the trash compactor on the Death Star.
That's right. So the Janus files is basically just going to create this ginormous kind of bum, are they? This files.
Oh wow, yeah, that is a little bit sphinctery. I just like every time I fall out of love with this film, the set design drags me. I just think that the whole design of this movie just drags me right back in again.
This is a movie I would love to have worked on. Sort of going to Shepperton and hanging out on these sets. It's just like being on the Gotham set on Tim Burton's Batman. It's just a really cool design.
Yeah. I mean, oh god, have you seen that fucking behind the scenes? Like the guy that snuck onto the set.
Snuck onto. It's like a year after the film had come out, they kept the Batman Gotham set up there at Pinewood for 2 years, thinking they're going to make a sequel.
It's huge.
It's massive.
It's huge.
So cool.
But it's also small.
Just a long road, just a massive big road, isn't it? They built.
Yeah, when you watch the film, there's the same stuff in the background all the way through the film. You go, yeah, it's a huge set, but maybe you should have made it sort of like movable. Do you know what I mean? So like you should have like put it in compartments.
With this film, they just built a street. They've built, haven't they? And then a few like other studios would have like the interior scenes of like the council and things like that.
Yeah.
So if you look at the movie, there's only a few actual kind of set pieces, like these little locations they've built.
Yeah, and what I would say about those shots is it feels like a studio backlot.
In some areas, it does. Yeah.
In this, I would say, yeah. The bit when he blows the car up, you know, my favourite.
That's very much like a backlog. Yeah, that is.
Of any movie ever made, is the bit when he goes, no! Oh, what a performance. Sorry, it was half an hour ago and I'm still dwelling on it. I just love that bit. Hey, look how cool he looks. Look how cool he looks. He's got the shoulder pads on. He's got the gun. They've all got blue eyes.
It was Dredd for 2 minutes there, Nick. 2 minutes of Dredd. Now it's back to Stallone action movie.
Yeah, but he looks wicked. He just looks wicked. Oh, man. Yeah, fuck you, Proknov. It's going to shoot him in there. Oh. Hey, Judge Dredd went crazy and shot me in the arm. He wouldn't have done that.
This is the part where Rob Schneider sort of smacks his face on the floor, so they cut it out. But Stallone just does his massive jump. Just goes.
Where's his shoulder pads gone? Oh, he took them off.
Here we go.
What he's actually demonstrating here is that this bit.
Yeah.
Down the stairs. What they've actually demonstrated in this movie is that those massive shoulder pads aren't actually practical for being a law enforcement.
Not at all.
It's like, as soon as you actually have to do any action, best get rid of the shoulder pads, isn't it? And the costume, get down to a vest. Brilliant. This sequence is so good.
Rob Schneider's face the entire film, like here, looks like he's just literally relieved himself. Which he does, doesn't he? He claims he's pissed himself.
It's a weird character, though, isn't it? Because
it's another thing where you need another character for the main lead to bounce off. So they can expand the plot, move it forward, or just be exposition dumps. And in the case of Rob Schneider, he's just comic relief. He doesn't actually do much computer hacking apart from hacking the food vending machine and then later on trying to find anything about the Janus files.
No, but he should be what he should be is he should be the audience's avatar, shouldn't he? He should be kind of like the guy that introduces us to the world.
Which he does at the beginning, doesn't it?
And then he disappears for half an hour, and then they bring him back. And really, I'm not like saying more Rob Schneider, please, but what I am saying is, in a better thought out film, he would be like basically the main character, where you see the film through his eyes, and they sort of do a bit of it, but then but not a lot.
It's the pulling from different directions of the story and each character's kind of responsibility within it. Absolutely. This whole sequence here is amazing. Really good miniature work.
Great.
Who would create an advertisement that kills you?
Well, you're not meant to fly through it, is the point. It's a light. I mean, it's not. I think that. I mean, obviously, the special effects are dated.
No, I think they're great. I think they're really good. This whole sequence here when they fly down, it's now become Super Mario Brothers, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it does. It feels like the same set, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
I think that. Yeah, I think that the special effects are dated, but I don't think that they've dated that badly. I think that they're great.
No. There's a couple of shots here where they're flying up the building. You can tell the compositing's a bit off. And
this sequence blew my mind.
It would have been great on a big screen, 35mm print.
It was incredible. It was just absolutely. This sequence is incredible, and you go, yeah, it's a lot like what they tried to do in Return of the Jedi, but they've updated, you know, even all of this stuff, jumping over and beating each other up and all this stuff. It's the Return of the Jedi, but they've updated it all. Oh my God, he's got a long way to drop. They've updated it all, and so the special effects. I think that it's worth doing just to kind of like show what technology.
Well, I do like the Jedi sequence because you get that really great sense of speed to the sequence and how it's edited, but because it's just down to blue screen and analog chemical compositing.
I don't not like it. I'm just saying that it never convinced me.
Right, sure.
At no point did I ever watch it and go, "Oh,
I love this." How they burst into this room and there's like someone's had a pillow fight because there's loads of like feathers everywhere. It's like they've just literally just been there a second ago. Now it's
like they've just walked onto a Tony Scott set and they've gone, "Have we missed him?" Oh, this is probably a better film that just got made.
Also, Rob Schneider now becomes this character who just eats. Every time you see him now, he's eating something.
Yeah, but he would have been hungry.
Because he's got nothing else to do, has he now? Because he's now become the sequence again, like with Max von Sydow, where he's just in the background, just sitting down, looking bored.
Well, we're not meant to relate to Judge Dredd. Do you know what I mean? We're meant to be like, Judge Dredd, he's a fucking... Not only is he like a badass, but he's also an arsehole. Do you know what I mean? So he's kind of like this character that you're meant to look at and go, fucking hell, he's a bit of a weird guy.
Mm.
So Rob Schneider, when he's sort of like hugging him on the back of that bike, going, whoa, we're meant to relate to Rob Schneider rather than Judge Dredd. Do you know what I mean? But the trouble is they cast Rob Schneider.
Mm.
So I would rather not relate to him.
I think the film's point, isn't it? It's like the film's problem is that they've tried to delve deep into Judge Dredd as a character where that didn't need to be explored. This needs to be very, essentially two-dimensional with him. It's like, this is the law. I'm going to use it to the best of my ability or abuse it as much as he can to sort of get what he wants done.
He should be that. What they fucked up basically is the story. The story should be.
The problem is the story.
It should be sort of like a detective film, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
There should be a crime, and then Judge Dredd has to solve it, and he uses extreme methods to do that, right?
Yeah, brutal violence and sort of over the top sort of action, you know.
And maybe it's a fascist movie, right?
Yeah.
So basically, the story should be: you don't need extreme violence to solve these problems in Mega City 1. And then Judge Dredd goes out and he proves that you do need to use extreme violence. That's kind of like or it should be kind of like, hey, Judge Dredd, you don't need extreme violence. And he learns a little bit that you don't need extreme violence. And maybe at the end he solves the crime in a non-violent way. But it shouldn't be the fact that he's the criminal on the run.
Yeah. Yeah, he should. Yeah, not at all. Yeah.
Absolute terrible Judge Dredd film where he's basically hiding for the entire movie. It's Judge Dredd. He's like in his girlfriend's apartment going, "Don't tell anyone I'm here." Fucking hell.
I think there's one moment very early on in the movie which demonstrates the sort of the wrong direction they were sort of going, was where he's when he's being grilled in court and Diane Lane stops them from using the footage, and the younger lads in the audience who are, you know, judging him go, yeah, like they celebrate because they don't want him to go down. But that sort of tone, that sequence there, just gets it wrong. You know, the sort of the serious nature of the sort of the comics and sort of the satire to it. But it felt too Hollywood, like, you know, like
yeah, it's like, oh, the kids love Judge Dredd.
Yeah, they should be terrified of him. Really, he should be an intimidating character.
He shouldn't be like a wacky uncle.
No,
do you know what I mean? He should be fucking. Joan Chen doesn't have a lot to do in this, does she?
No, apart from stroke her chest and do some high flying kicks later on.
But nobody like what I would argue. I would say that this film is not good. And I would also say, so this is the bit where they built a full prosthetic.
Yeah, because then you only see a little bit of blood.
Did we talk about that in this commentary, or did we talk about it before we started watching it? Yeah. We're in lockdown. I can't remember what happened like 10 minutes ago.
Did we talk about it before recording or not? I can't remember. Yeah.
Have I changed my pants this week? Yeah. See, I think that's just enough gore as a 15-year-old to go, oh, that's horrible. And I actually think that's the thing where it
less
left enough to your imagine. Yeah, less is more. It leaves enough to your imagination to think that's a nasty death.
I think in horror, I think sometimes less is more kind of works better. But with someone who does Dredd and you're dealing with a violent kind of thing like RoboCop, it's got to be over the top. But as I said, as you know, with RoboCop they cut it back more by the MPAA, thus ultimately making it more violent.
Yeah, making it worse.
Yeah.
When you see the Ed 09 sequence and the guy gets shot for ages and ages,
yeah, it's just
funny.
It's fucking.
It ends up being funny.
It's like in Total Recall where he uses that guy as a shield on the escalator. It's so fucking funny.
It's so like gratuitous and horrible. But yeah, exactly. But when you watch the ITV edit, and it's just, I think that Ed 09 sequence is great because it's terrifying. You just think, fucking hell, no one can save him. He's thrown the gun down. He's done everything that he can, but when he gets killed, it's the punchline, and he just like goes on for ages and ages. You know, I think with horror, you're right. Less is more. Could have done without some of them Friday the 13th sequels. It's just stuff like that, Oliver. You know, just a few jokes thrown in to lighten things up.
But as we said earlier, though, the clones are now about to appear, who are actually quite terrifying in how they look. They are proper gruesome, aren't they? I presume they're sort of built on Rico's appearance, but they break out doing this sort of clumsy sort of fight sequence we get in the minute, just like, Diane Lane's fighting Joanne Chen, and then Armando's kind of fighting Stallone, and then these clones do nothing.
Yeah.
What do they do?
Look at this pantsuit that Armand Assante's wearing.
Oh, it's so high. It's Simon Cowell all the way through.
Yeah, but look at the shoulder pads as well. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous. I've gone out with girlfriends that wear that's a ridiculous outfit. Oh, they looked great though. These clones. Basically, it's a much more expensive sequence that they cut, isn't it? They ran out of budget or something. You can tell
they've had these little clones must have come out of stasis and tried to attack him or something like that. Because he said release the clones, right? He says release them. So thus he wants them to fight Dredd.
Doesn't he say send in the clones? It's a joke. It's meant to be. It's a pun on send in the clowns.
No,
it is. And at the time, all of the reviews were. There's a whole sequence at the end where there's a load of clones that seems to only exist so Armand Asante can say, send in the clones.
Is that what Empire said?
I think it was Empire, yeah. I used to read Empire and Total Film because I wanted to I wanted to, like each side of the story.
Yeah, well, of course. I think I kind of stopped with Empire once they gave I think it was Attack of the Clones 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5. And it was
Attack of the Clones got 5 stars famously, but they apologised for that.
They apologised, re-reviewed it. They after they coughed up that money from Fox.
I stopped reading Empire because I just felt like they gave some people just a free pass. I think every time Peter Jackson made a movie, it would automatically get 4 or 5 stars just before it, even before it would come out. And same with Spielberg, and you go, come on, it's not.
Oh, we're missing the favourite bit. I am the law. Law.
I am the law.
Why did they keep that bit in? It doesn't get the best reaction. It gets the wrong reaction from the audience because they just laugh. It's just ends up becoming a comedy.
I love it. I think it's a great performance.
It's a great delivery and over the top and silly. But it's great. I suppose it's his breakdown that his family had left him. His brother, Dredd, has turned against him.
But they would have filmed this on Thursday afternoon after they blew up that car. And they'd have had sort of like 5 o'clock sandwiches on set.
Brought in by the tea lady.
And they'd have gone, bloody hell, mate, you absolutely nailed that scene. You know, it's a one-upmanship, isn't it? It's a Sante and Stallone on set going, this is my moment. I'm going to fucking... And do you know what? Armand Asante is the better actor in this scene. And he absolutely wipes the floor with Stallone. But he just... I don't even think it... I love it. I love it.
I love when they just get knocked out by the robot. That's the best part.
He's hacking him. There he is. Absolutely hacking him to shreds. He is.
Just pulling some cables out his back. Yeah, that'll be fine.
Love it. Oh.
Nope.
Oh, don't die. Oh, he dies.
Kill's over.
There he is. Send in the clones. He says it.
Send in
but it's
the clowns.
Who's he saying it to?
Well, do you know the lady does the voice? Is it Janus or just a computer?
Samantha Janus.
No.
From
no, it's Adriana Barbeau.
From Babes in the Wood.
It's John Carpenter's ex-wife does the voice. Lady from the Fog. She does the voice.
Oh right.
Of the
yeah,
computer.
fucking hell. She did loads of what's her name? She's in loads of George A. Romero.
It's Adriana, isn't it? Barbeau.
Yeah, right. She's in Creepshow as well, isn't she?
Yeah. I think she does the voice of Catwoman or whatever, like in the animated Batman show. She did some cartoon voices.
Oh really? It's weird who they get. Like when you look at the animated series, they get some really famous people in. Clancy Brown is Lex Luthor.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Well, Captain Planet had loads of like Jeff Goldblum in it and Margot Kidder and Whoopi Goldberg.
Fuck that fucking cunt. I fucking hate Captain Planet. Fucking patronising prick.
Don't lick batteries, kids. You know.
Fuck him. You know the end of He-Man when they gave you like a message.
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah.
Half an hour of that every time. Come on, a spoonful of sugar, mate. Fucking hell. Can't all be medicine. Captain Planet. Fuck me. Fucking hell. They've saved another action sequence there. We've already done the bikes. Let's just have a fist fight on the top of a darkly lit studio.
He also gets to use his famous gun at the beginning of the movie, and he's just been using like shotguns and like these big machine assault rifles, you know.
Don't have a fucking problem with that. So when Batman Forever comes along and Two-Face flies his helicopter into the Statue of Liberty, I always felt like
this was like really... the same universe, Nick.
It feels like it's the same set. Do you know what I mean? It just felt like I felt that they were kind of connected. This is a much better film than Batman Forever.
Yeah, it is a better film.
There are missing pieces to it, but
it'd be interesting to see if there was ever a sort of work print released or that there was ever sort of any discussion about extending the movie, because Danny Cannon has not talked about the film at all. I tried looking to find some interviews with him, and the only thing I can find on YouTube was kind of the last number of years is him talking about Gotham TV show, Pennywise, and I think probably CSI or whatever. But yeah, no one seemed to have grilled him on Judge Dredd.
I imagine it was a horrific. I don't think he talks about it. He would have talked about it by now. Like, I imagine it was an absolutely horrific experience. This film looks better. I mean, this has still got neon and it's all sort of flashy, but it looks better than the Batman, the Joel Schumacher Batman films. Do you know what I mean?
Also, Adrian Biddle, good. He's a very good cameraman.
Absolutely.
I think with Danny Cannon, because he was a huge fan of Judge Dredd, obsessed with the comics, got to do it. Got to do a massive big budget movie, and then it got creative differences just came into play, and he got kind of screwed over with his vision, I would imagine. And probably, as you say, Nick, he's probably just so upset by it, or doesn't want to talk about it anymore. I suppose like one of us, making a superhero movie and it getting, screwed in the edit or by the star of the movie. Yeah,
I think it's the sort of film that no one left being happy. No one left the project being happy with, but as a compromise movie, I enjoy it. It holds together.
Mm.
I do think it's ridiculous. He walks out at the end of all this wearing a leotard.
And his veins all popping out of his arms. And it's a great English weather as well. Puddles everywhere on set. Pissing it down with rain.
I just think that it's Mega City 1. That's what I think. Fuck it. And then he just gets right back onto work. Have a sleep, mate. Oh, here he is. Yeah, that's right. Get one more one-liner in. Don't mind him. Don't mind him at all. The costumes are incredible. Obviously, the Carl Urban one is a lot more comic accurate in terms of how he looks, but in terms of this is an interpretation of an existing thing, right?
Mm.
And I think that if Carl Urban didn't come along and you didn't get that movie, then people would have a right to be upset. Now that exists, this is like a companion piece.
The writer of this, Stephen D'Souza, he did say that, you know, they didn't get it right at the time, and he felt with the Dredd film from 2012 they did get it right, but again it wasn't successful, because Dredd really kind of outside the UK, you know, doesn't have a large following comparison to, you know, Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, and all the Marvel characters.
But like you said, he was 8 pages in 2000 AD. It wasn't the Judge Dredd comics. It was like, although that Batman Judge Dredd crossover is incredible.
I
right?
really enjoyed that. Yeah, as a kid, I had that. My friend, because that's what got me into Dredd, was that crossover. Strangely, because
I've never really been into Dredd, but but that Batman stuff is fucking incredible.
Yeah. As you mentioned, you know, sort of referencing the sort of amount of, you know, of Dredd in the comic of 2000 AD, because as a kid I'd flick through it and go, where's Dredd? Oh, he's in it for like 3 or 4 pages and everything else to other characters, so it's a bit like the Beano. And so I was just like, well, you know, it was, you know, I didn't fully grasp, you know, get into it until sort of, you know, later through the years. So yeah, as like you, Nick, when we saw this movie, I was like, wow, this is, you know, really looks amazing. It's a good, somewhat, you know, pretty competent action movie. It's
an action movie
that was ultimately compromised. But as a kid, you don't really notice that. You know, you sort of just accept it for what it is.
I guess the biggest crime is the fact that it's a straight up action movie with some comedy in it. Where in actual fact, the comic strip is a satire.
Yeah.
And they've lost. You're right. They've lost all of that. And something like RoboCop absolutely nails the tone of what Judge Dredd is.
Definitely. And that's what I mean. I suppose then we've already had a good Judge Dredd movie, and it was RoboCop. You know, and obviously, you know, the Dredd from 2012. I still rate that movie highly. I think it's a great film. I still wish there could be more with Dredd, like more other characters thrown in, instead of just some drug lord. You know, just kind of a bit generic. But you know, you got to play it. They had to play it, kind of downplay things because the budgets are lower, and you need to sort of, you can't go all out again like this film, because you're going to lose money.
That Dredd movie's great. That Carl Urban one is great. But what I would say is I don't think they've ever 100% nailed Batman. They made one really good RoboCop movie, but even the sequels didn't nail the tone of the first one. And this film was like a mid-90s action movie that kind of had Judge Dredd skin put on it, but like,
yeah, elements are there, but they are not fully utilized to their, you know, to their best efforts.
In many ways, it's a slicker, better film than Demolition Man, but what makes Demolition Man an absolute stone cold classic is the fact that it does have satire in it, and it's got Wesley Snipes. Do you know what I mean? It's just Demolition Man is a superior movie.
Yeah, but
it also feels kind of tonally a bit all over the place. I mean, it's not just a superior movie; it's a different league. Demolition Man, outside of Rocky, is basically one of Stone's best movies. Outside of that franchise, better than, I mean, First Blood is good, but it's better than the Rambos, really.
I suppose Stallone's 90s period of movies, Demolition Man is probably my favourite film out of that chunk. I mean, there's you know, big parts of Cliffhanger I really enjoy, but Demolition Man's got the great concept of the sort of the future, and everyone's super nice and polite and pathetic. And you've got Wesley Snipes as a great villain thrown into the mix, where when that Daylight and Dredd, the next two in his sort of catalogue, I suppose maybe Copland. Copland's probably his best movie of that period, actually, in terms of his performance.
Well, his performance. I don't think the film is.
I think the film's good.
I think the film is good. I just don't think that I think that his performance is why people still talk about Copland. I don't think Copland is a good enough movie. It's not a Scorsese. It's not like a Goodfellas.
It's not Casino, is it? Or Goodfellas, is it?
No. And I think it's sort of like it's a fairly average film in terms of plot and what's going on, that is elevated by everyone's performance. And the performances are great, but the story isn't the sort of story that keeps you coming back. And the dialogue isn't there. I mean, there's amazing sequences in Copland. I would say Stallone.
But Demolition Man's far more rewatchable, though. I think, I've gone back to that far more than any of his other movies.
It's a great film. It's an absolutely great film. Demolition Man's brilliant. But I would say that his 90s output was far more self-aware and enjoyable than his 80s output. I would pick Cliffhanger, Demolition Man, Assassins, The Specialists, Daylight. I would pick any of those films over Cobra, Tango and Cash. I mean, I love Tango and Cash because it is so shit, but I only like it ironically because it's mind-boggling.
Well, that film's all over the place tonally as well. You know, that is just let's make everything up on the spot sort of attitude.
Yeah, the director went past a construction site and then the next day he said, "Oh, I want everyone to be driving huge JCB lorries."
Well, that's John Peters. John Peters said that, yeah. John Peters has gone, off the chart,
Was that, did I learn that off of one of your fucking commentaries? I've quoted you back at you. That's crazy.
It's all Inception now.
1995. Tango and Cash I just think is a ridiculous one. But I would pick, I just think I loved every year Stallone would come out with a film and I'd go and see it. And basically, more than Schwarzenegger, the 90s was sort of like my childhood going to the movies. I'd see a Stallone movie every year and I'd look forward to them.
There you go. Well, final thoughts on Judge Dredd is that it's not as bad. I mean, I go back to it now and again, and it's not unwatchable. It fails at what it's supposed to be doing, but I'll never fully write it off though, because of its kind of production values and its music and it came out at a time when I was getting into Judge Dredd, getting into Stallone, sorry, like you were. So it'd always be part of my nostalgia.
For a film that fails at almost everything, it's entirely watchable. And and do you know what? If they'd have had those sets, those costumes, and those actors, and they'd have written a better film. And even Danny Cannon, if he'd have been allowed to make what he wanted to make, there was potential to make a really good film there. You know, they had all of the assets lined up where they could have absolutely nailed it, and I think it lost to studio tinkering and ego, and so it's I wouldn't even say it's flawed. I would say that on some levels it is a bad film, but also I would say it's a really watchable film and I enjoy it.
There you go. Perfect summary there, Nick. Well, everyone, that is the end of the commentary. Hope you enjoyed it. Me and Nick will be back with some more. Possibly, is it In the Mouth of Madness you'd like to do, Nick?
Yeah, maybe, but we could do Eraser.
Ooh.
We could do Space Truckers. These are just what Amazon recommended me. Oh, you like Demolition Man? You'd probably like Space Truckers. No.
Space Truckers is not good.
Even when I did like Demolition Man, I didn't like Space Truckers. Ghosts of Mars, no.
You could do Time Cop.
I like Time Cop. That's a weird one though, isn't it? Let's do Time Cop.
Oh, good. All right, well, take care, everyone, and goodbye.
Goodbye.